Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike McHugh, the host of Coastal Daybreak, along with Richard Clark, news director for the Carteret News-Times, on a Memorial Day edition of Carteret Connects.
Carteret Connects.
Yeah, hard to believe it's already Memorial Day. It's May 25th. And how's it going for you? Have you gone out? Have you gone to the restaurants?
The shops, the stores, the beaches.
My goodness, where do you begin? But a good place to begin is the restaurants, because they on Friday were allowed to open up indoor seating.
And boy, they did.
And they did, to 50% or less of their capacity. And talking to some of the restaurateurs and observing the restaurants down in the Swansboro area, they were doing gangbuster business.
Yeah, and it's like everybody was rushing to get out like it was a sprint.
Yeah, it was amazing, because I was on the waterfront yesterday in Swansboro about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was just jumping. Now it's a Sunday, it's a holiday weekend. I saw several places where they had outdoor entertainment that there was absolutely zero social distancing. It was shoulder to shoulder. It looked like a spring break crowd. I mean, it looked like a crowd you'd see at spring break, not necessarily the age, but just the amount of people in such tight quarters. It was like, wow.
Well, I saw a video from some of your stomping ground, Ocean City, Maryland.
Yeah,
it was packed.
Yeah,
just packed.
I got a call from a resident of Hubert, and he said, "Hey, you want to be down on the waterfront tomorrow or today, which was Sunday? We're putting together a 30-boat Trump flotilla."
They went through Wrightsville, didn't they?
No, they started. Well, this is a little local group. They started in the Hubert area on the Intercoastal Waterway and made their way up through Swansboro. They did a tour around the basin.
Yeah, they got
up to Cedar
There
Point.
was one in Wrightsville.
There was there were several, because I was reading a brief in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, and that they were doing them in Florida. And it amazes me with the Trump supporters. And truth be told, I voted for President Trump in 2016. But I didn't go to the extent of buying all of the accoutrements and souvenirs, flags, shirts, hats, anything. These boats were more decked out than the Christmas flotilla with Santa Claus stuff on it that we have in Swansboro. In fact, we have annually, and people know this, we have a flotilla in Swansboro on Saturday after Thanksgiving. And we get like 10 or 12 boats. They had 30, or kind of a flash mob type boat, flotilla.
Yeah, there were quite a few at the one in Wrightsville.
So I didn't see Wrightsville. I'd be curious to see how many boats they have.
Yeah, I saw the video. I didn't actually see it live. So.
That's amazing. But no, people were out, and I think that's a good thing. We'll see. We'll see as the summer, now that the unofficial start of summer has started with this weekend and this holiday, Memorial Day. What's a shame is that. There's so many things wrong with this whole virus thing, but people are now starting to come out to the restaurants. But where they have a Memorial Day ceremony in Jacksonville each year at the Veterans Cemetery, it's closed to the public. They're showing it on a live stream actually in the next hour and a half or so on the local Jacksonville YouTube channel and on G10. So if you're seeing this live now, our broadcast, and if you want to catch that, they're doing a live stream of it starting at 11 o'clock down there. So the cemetery is closed, again, unfortunately.
And thank you to all the servicemen and their families.
Yeah, they paid the ultimate price. Price. So it's interesting that I talked to a couple of veterans over the weekend, and they had this one friend of mine had a memorial placed outside their subdivision, and just describing how this individual was killed in action. They were in Iraq doing air traffic control, and he just went outside of where they were bunking down, and just a stray mortar came over the wall, and as he described it, the person I was talking to, he more or less caught it in his lap.
They
just dead. Yeah, and they're always young. I mean, who else goes off to war? It's not guys my age.
Yeah, they don't send us old people off.
It's the 20-somethings.
The last time they sent old people was probably like the Revolutionary
Civil War.
Yeah,
Civil War,
where you had to go because it was in your backyard.
Yeah.
The NASCAR race did the same thing. They honored somebody that had died.
Yeah, each car was.
A lot of them, most of them were IED stuff.
Sure, because that enemy is not. They don't abide by the Geneva Convention. They're not true battle-hardened warriors. They're cowards.
The interesting thing is, I watched this history show this weekend called America, This Is Us, or something like that, and they were covering Revolutionary War and how we created a lot of the we started shooting officers. Yeah. We wouldn't fight standing still.
Yeah. Oh, we changed the way battles were.
We changed it, and they had several of our generals up there talking about how we changed it.
Guerrilla warfare.
Yeah,
because the British and most armies at that time
lined up.
They lined up. They squatted. Mm-hmm. They command fire and respect. See, because they were. I think because they were so vulnerable, there was this unwritten rule, gentleman's rule between officers. Yeah. Gentleman rule.
Right.
Don't shoot ours, we won't shoot yours.
Exactly.
So they just put the
we said the heck
put
with
the
that.
fodder out there.
Yeah. And what it was the British Army was going, I can't remember, but they were going like through the north part of New York State. So they were going into the frontier part, and that's when we started using long guns to shoot them and run and things like that. And so by the time this particular general started with a B, I can't remember,
Bradford.
And that doesn't ring a bell. But anyway, by the time he got to where he was going, we had killed like 80% of the army.
Yeah.
Because we were just picking them off, run on to the next spot and pick them off, that sort of thing. And he had such a big army. They had women that went with it, servants, big bunch of carriages and things like that.
Not the kind of meld history with what we see on the big screen, but you saw that in that Mel Gibson movie.
Yes, and I think that's where they got.
Yeah, and they figured out, hey, you know what? They're really sitting ducks out here.
And they were slow moving because they had so much in their army.
Not to mention, they're wearing red coats.
Right.
Talk about camouflage.
And it was really interesting, to watch that kind of stuff. It's been a while since I had looked at anything like that.
But you think about the long rifles, but they were all black powder, so you got a shot off, then you had to reload quickly. Split the powder and then to put the ammunition.
Innovation of it was we invented the
rifle,
the one that had the marks inside of it that swirled. So the bullet,
the ball, rifle.
Yeah, the bullet came out and it was more accurate and it came out faster because it was spinning.
But that didn't see
the grooves inside the barrel.
That didn't see until the Civil War the rifled shot, and that changed the game plan not only in shot but also in artillery. Mm-hmm. And to this day, you can go down to Fort Sumter and you can see the artillery rounds that still in the walls of the fort. But the rifled shot.
But the frontiersmen that had grown up, well, not grown up, but had become accustomed to living in the woods, chasing animals and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. They became the bulk of our army. And ironically, we hired this guy, George Washington brought in a guy from, might have been Austria or somewhere like that. He was gay. And he actually was the one that invented the modern day army, the training, like he moved the latrines to the other side of the camp and put the food on the other side to get rid of the disease. I can't remember the guy's name. It's like a 3-name Von something. But it was interesting. You go back and do your history and look at it.
Wow.
He changed the entire landscape. And our generals would say we still use most of these techniques today on training military people. And it really changed our whole Revolution Army.
So Washington's saying to this Prussian or whatever, it's like
that's what it was. He was Prussian.
Yeah. It's like, hey, if anybody asks you, don't tell them.
Yeah. And apparently that had led to his whatever over there, and he brought him over here, and he transformed our entire army. So
wow. Yeah. And I think in his later career, Admiral Farragut, brought him into the Revolutionary Navy, and they made him a rear admiral.
I don't doubt it. This guy was apparently the deal.
It's a funny joke. You didn't get it.
Yeah, I got it. I was gonna let that go.
He was the country's first rear admiral.
Rear admiral. I know.
It's Memorial Day.
I was trying to let
keep it reverend like. So no, I love reading. I love the history. And like those shows that just illustrate that as well.
Mm-hmm. And, it was great. It's on Netflix right now or Amazon, one of them.
It's amazing. It's amazing how our country evolved.
There was two separate ones. This one, and then there's one about business where it talks about Rockefeller and the steel guy, Carnegie, and how their kind of stuff overlaps, and the electric guy and all that. It's Edison. Really good stuff, man. It's really good stuff.
The electric guy.
Yeah, Edison.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like the electric company.
Well, actually, it was Edison and the other guy.
Thomas Edison and...
oh, God, we named something after him.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm going blank here.
Yeah, we prepare well for this show.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're kind of flying.
I can't...
The electric guy?
There were two guys that would come trying to do the electricity thing at the same time.
Well, there was Edison and Bell. He did the phone.
That doesn't ring a bell. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Okay, the electricity.
But anyway.
Ben Franklin.
No, it was.
He flew a kite. No. You gotta pay more attention when you're watching these shows.
I do, but
Probably
I'm going blank right
grooming
now.
your cats while you're watching that. The old Cheddar.
Yeah,
Cheddar
Cheddar was running around, knocking stuff over. He broke a lamp, a lamp that my girlfriend had for 20 years.
I saw a funny little meme that had about
Tesla.
Huh?
Nikola Tesla.
Tesla.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla and Edison were trying to get electricity first. They were fighting each other.
Okay.
And Tesla's stuff was better, but Edison ended up getting there first.
That's why we say Tesla and Elon Musk and Tesla. Right. Okay, got it now. Okay, I would never guess that one. I do terrible in Jeopardy.
I told you it was.
Jeopardy.
I just went blank. But yeah, electric guy's all I can remember.
And I'm keep thinking like the Electric Factory.
But it's good history stuff. And
well, speaking of history, today's Memorial Day.
The whole point.
Einstein, I'll throw this question out to you. When was Memorial Day made an official federal holiday?
My guess was the late '60s, but
well, you're dead on, because it was first celebrated in 1971, but it was first observed in 1966.
And that was
President Johnson and a town up in New York, and it was the centennial of their veterans up there after the Civil War. Civil War ended.
And you said it was called something else.
It's called Decoration Day.
There you go.
And it had, the true meaning of Decoration Day was to go out to the cemeteries and put the flags and put flowers on the graves of the fallen. We also used it as a day, because it was in May, as to put the porch furniture out, put the awnings out, and it was always the beginning of the unofficial start of summer, and the pools opened where I came from. Dare I say, Allentown.
Side note: have you been to Arlington?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's oof.
Yeah,
it's kind of sober.
Any of those?
I'd like to see the one in France too.
Yeah. I've never been over to France.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Any of those national cemeteries are just moving.
Did you know that was Robert E. Lee's?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, they did that. Throw in his face.
Intentionally, yeah, absolutely.
So Arlington National Cemetery is across the Potomac from Washington D.C. in Arlington, and it was the home of Robert E. Lee, and it was a slave-owned plantation, and it's on high ground. So during the wars,
they use his wife's flower bed.
To the victors go the spoils, and what is it? There's so many different areas of Arlington that are just fascinating and amazing, and one of them is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and watching that march, the parade, how they guard that each day. It's all orchestrated, choreographed, the set number of steps, the timing.
It is pretty crazy.
And it's haunting.
Well, one of the beauties of growing up in Virginia, going to school in Virginia, was we got to do everything they got in D.C., the Smithsonian, all that stuff. Richmond obviously is the capital of the Confederacy, so they got a huge Civil War museum. We had Jamestown and Williamsburg. They took all of us to that stuff. So you learn a lot about that kind of stuff.
And you had like Petersburg to the south of Richmond, and then you got Cold Harbor.
And Appomattox. Appomattox is probably one of the nicer, that's probably not the right word, but it still has real standing Civil War stuff. Most of the Civil War stuff is just some empty field, and you're going,
or it's built around, like Manassas got totally surrounded by, even Gettysburg to a degree got rebuilt.
But Appomattox, they haven't touched that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because
surrender.
There's a road that goes through there, and they have this little building, and it says, Confederate headquarters. But like a stone's throw down the road, right over there is the Union headquarters. Yeah. And you're going, well, they could have just hollered at each other from here. Yeah. So I guess it was just different,
Well, yeah, it was a lot. It's like what buildings were maybe schools before the war, or they were large homes became hospitals.
Yeah.
So you'd have Confederate.
I believe one of them was actually somebody's home or something.
Yeah. The Civil War battlefields around that area you describe are just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
To cemeteries, though, I was saying, the national cemeteries, Arlington, of course, being the biggest, but even in Newburgh, there's a beautiful national cemetery.
Is it really?
Oh my God, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous cemetery, and there's so much you can learn by going to this and just paying homage to those that are buried in it. Now, of course, not all have fallen in battle, because they're still burying veterans at Arlington. And to some extent, I believe, still in New Bern as well. But Wilmington's got a big national cemetery. They're all over the United States.
Well, I'm a subscriber of the theory of saying those that ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And I truly believe that. I think it's one of the things that our schools, and that's another topic, just don't cover anymore.
I'm always amazed when they ask students of any age, who were the combatants in the Revolutionary War, what period of time was it, and then what was the Civil War fought over? When was the Civil War fought? Forget about the Spanish-American War.
Oh yeah, don't even ask about 1812.
Or when was the War of 1812
Yeah,
fought? Or the 1898 Spanish-American War. Then
shame.
World War I, and then World War II. And there are still some World War II veterans still with us today. And even the youngest ones are now like mid, like
How
90.
old are they now?
Well,
There aren't
some of
many.
them jumped in, before they were allowed to. If they were 16 in 1942, that means they were born in 1926.
Wow.
So they're 84.
I watched a lot of history this weekend for lack of
94,
sports.
94 to 95 is the youngest. Because other than, so when you see, you'll see like a veteran, and maybe they're 90 or 89, or they're Korea now. The older guys. There's a term that you hear frequently down here, and if you hear it and you say he is this term, hardcore warrior, means that he served World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Imagine that career. Wow.
That is hardcore.
Yeah.
That is hardcore.
Even like coming out of World War II, and war was over in 45, and then 50 we start Korea.
Well,
And then Korea was only less than 3 years, 53. You had that time then after that, and then all of a sudden Vietnam bubbles up, and now think of the difference of that hardcore warrior. If for just as an example, if suppose he was in Patton's Third Army, and they're marching through France and Germany, and then he finds himself in North Korea during the Korean War, and then finds himself in the jungles of Vietnam.
yeah, it's a big difference.
Wow.
That's a big
Wow.
difference.
And
the way they fought.
think of the warfare. Yeah.
The interesting thing to me, again, is I watched a little bit of World War One, is how we got into these wars over really nothing. Somebody did something to somebody, and it just cascaded to the point.
World War I, they're all trying to realign the world, Europe, and because it never.
Did you know that apparently there's a guy, I guess he was French, that had Hitler was in World War I, was in the army, and he was a messenger. Apparently there was a guy that had him in his sights and did not shoot him. Can you imagine how much the world would have changed if that guy had just taken the shot right there?
Maybe,
Yeah.
He used to say there could have been
Complete speculation.
Could have been a second Hitler.
But wow, I generally believe if you kill one, whatever comes back is going to be worse.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Well, so you had World War I, and they were, trying. It goes back to, when we start expanding out of our home area, and for instance, like the British, the French, the Italian, everybody's exploring. They're trying to create new lands. Well, they create boundaries that don't really
exist.
natural boundaries.
Right.
So that was the British Empire. The result of that, how they carved up the Middle East, how they carved up India and Africa. And
try to do it here,
and
the
then
French here too.
You try to settle these disputes through diplomacy. The last thing you want to use is war, and that's what they resolved to go to war on that. We got drawn in towards the end of World War I.
There's a reason they speak French in Quebec and French in New Orleans
and in Africa. Africa, French Zaire.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of Pax, world peace after 1919.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Germany
starts 20 years.
Not even that, because he came out in 1919, 1920. Hitler started making his moves, in the mid-30s, and then we're in a depression.
Yeah.
Europe's going through the same thing, and then you get some idiot like that rises up.
And
a little bit of military experience, like you said. He almost got popped. He should have.
Should have.
Then in the beer halls of Germany, they start this movement. And all of a sudden, they just explode in September 39.
And again,
they invaded Poland.
We're not even trying to really be in it until Japan does what they do.
Yeah, and there's speculation there that Roosevelt
let it happen.
Yeah, he let it happen.
Yeah.
Roosevelt wanted the United States to go into a war, but they had no reason.
I would say this.
I don't think Roosevelt wanted 3,000.
Yeah, I don't think he would have let that happen. I think
it was a perfect storm
Yes.
of a lot of just bad decisions and not taking observing what was happening at the
Well,
time.
here's one for you. This is one of the most hardcore things I've ever heard as a leader has to do. Toward the end of in the middle of the World War II, you know, France and England were allies, but France mainland already fallen, and but the French Navy was still out. Well, there's still bad blood between France and England. Churchill wanted the French ships to come to Britain and let them take over, so to speak. The French admiral didn't want to do this, so he took his fleet and was off the coast of Algiers. And Churchill was worried that the Nazis, Germany, was going to get their hands on the boats, which were a big deal because at that point they really just had the U-boats and stuff. Churchill sunk them.
He scuttled.
Sunk them with the French on them. Like 500 French people died.
Wow. Yeah,
and Churchill made that call. Can you imagine today us taking our ally and saying, look, we
had to do it for the better of,
right.
the better of the war.
That's hardcore stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's hardcore stuff. I don't care who you are. That's not a decision that a sane person can make lightly. I mean, you're killing your friends, so to speak. People that have done nothing to you for the betterment of the whole thing.
All I can say is thank God the Americans came into however they were drawn in, the Japanese first, and then, Germany declared war on the United States a couple days after Pearl Harbor, along with Italy. You forget about that. Italy was part of the Axis.
I need to brush up on my what turned the U-boat deal, because there for a while they could own the Atlantic. You couldn't get across there.
Yeah, well, what happened was the United States figured out about the convoys, and they were then protected. Otherwise, the merchant ships were just going by themselves.
When you want to know how many ships there are at the bottom of that thing?
A lot.
Because they sunk a ton.
They did.
I mean, there's some off the coast here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the United States got more offensive-minded when they were doing convoys across. So they'd have dirigibles and also planes spotting the submarines.
Yeah.
So they took them out that way. But yeah, it was risky to say the least.
Oh yeah, can you imagine being on one of them supply boats early on and you don't even really know any better, and all of a sudden you got a big hole in your boat.
Yeah.
In the middle of it,
you're hauling,
coal or metal or whatever,
something over supplies over to Europe. Yeah, it was dangerous. And the way they'd come up the coast of South America, then they'd come into the United States and up the coast of the United States, and then jump over.
Well, apparently there's some sort of wreck in the Gulf of a U-boat or something. I guess they went to that far, all the way around Florida and into the Gulf, one of them. And there's apparently some sort of wreck. You could dive or something. I don't know. I've done a tad of research.
Well, think about too how the troops were moved. They were moved by ship.
That's what I mean.
Imagine if you take one of those down, you hit the mother lode.
Can you imagine how many? I'm sure they did. I'm sure we just didn't report that.
Not Eisenhower. Churchill came to the White House in '41 with FDR, and I'm wondering how
he got here.
He could have flown. I mean, they could have flown from.
Did they have anything to fly that far?
Ireland to Newfoundland, they probably could make it across.
Because they didn't have.
They had that DC. They had like the equivalent of like a DC-3.
Because it really wasn't until Howard Hughes era that they started flying across the Atlantic.
Yeah, I got to look into that. Whether he came across. I mean, imagine the Prime Minister of
on
England
a boat with a U-boat
for how many days?
2 weeks, right?
It wouldn't be that long. It's like the Pilgrims. It'd be about 5 or 6 days, I think, to come across. But still, you're going across where it's one thing the Titanic hits an iceberg. It's another thing to know that there's U-boats under there that had torpedoes setting their sights on.
You talk about those guys in those wooden boats. That's some hardy stuff.
I think they had aircraft that could make on that shore from Newfoundland over to like Ireland.
You think?
I think so. I think that I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, we'll have to get back on our history on that one. Because that's hardcore.
But I mean, just how they got back and forth. Because I mean, Roosevelt, he traveled over to Yalta and he met with Stalin and Churchill. That's the famous picture of them three.
Yeah.
So that's in late '44 because he died. He dies in '45.
In my history thing, I watched a little on Stalin too, and how his unpreparedness almost cost him the initial German surge.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until...
Look at the numbers of how many Russians died in World War II. It's like 60, I think it's 60 million.
You know about the Leningrad stuff, right?
Yeah, the siege of Leningrad.
Golly. Yeah. They just let 500,000 people starved.
They figured, well, the Germans can't take us because of our winters, and
Well, kind of right.
they were kind of right, but they lost. I mean, they lost tens of millions.
And for those that don't know, Germany basically surrounded and cut off Leningrad, which was a city of over 1 million at the time, and 3/4 of them starved to death.
The siege of Leningrad.
It's hardcore stuff.
And that's just, so you fast forward to the year 2021, and we have this.
Yeah.
This too shall pass somehow.
Yeah.
We're not sheltered. We're not having a siege. We're not sheltering in place. I mean, all indications what you saw, over the weekend.
I'm hoping that the summer heat will get rid of it for a while. And it remains.
There's a lot of good news on the.
My NBA is talking about. They're starting to heat up now.
Baseball's talking as well.
So I'm ready.
Baseball, actually, they opened up some of the training areas.
So did NFL.
NFL did. All the rules that they're going to impose on the players for baseball, I don't even think. Personally, I don't think it's worth it. But
the money's the money.
The money's the money, and that's the other thing. They want to. Some of these players want to be paid for the full season.
They have to. I'm not saying the league has to pay them that, but if I'm a player, I definitely want my money.
But the thing is, what does your contract say? You're signed with the.
I guess
New
it
York
depends
Mets
on the
for
wording, doesn't
for
it?
162 games, and then if we make the playoffs, you get that as well. But if we're only playing 81, common sense would say take half and just be
I
glad.
suppose that depends on the wording, doesn't it?
Huh?
Because
Sure it does.
if you get hurt and you miss X amount of games, they don't dock your money.
Yeah.
So how does that work? I guess it depends on the team and wording and lawyers and.
I'm curious to see how when the door is cracked, allowing fans to go into whichever venue it is, whether it's NASCAR first.
Some showed up in Charlotte.
Did they?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's going to say, you know what? Okay, just if you temperature check, sign a waiver. It's general.
Yeah, let me go. I'm ready to
go.
Well, you know who had the best deal? At the Charlotte Motor Speedway, they have some condos.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you live there.
Michael Waltrip, yeah.
That's like your own race. You're the only one there.
So that
would have been the coolest thing ever.
In turn one of
God,
Charlotte Motor Speedway is an elevated condominium of, good Lord, it must be about 10 stories high, maybe 6 to 10 stories high.
Yeah, I think it's 6.
And it's residents. So you own that condominium, just like you'd own a condominium in any community around here. Except the view is the racetrack. So, I mean, I get it. If you have a condominium in Salter Path or Atlantic Beach or Indian Beach, your view is always going to be over the ocean.
Yes.
Because why? Because you love nature, you love the ocean. These people that buy the condos, they love racing.
Right.
So they're looking out over the entire racetrack at Charlotte.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was, and it'd be one thing when the crowd there. Yeah. But this is like your own personal race.
Yeah. You talk about
nobody else.
You talk about a man cave in a garage. Oh. I mean, how do they?
You know how great that would have been?
I mean, first of all, it's your rich boys that are going to have it.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So how do you decorate it? Did you decorate it in beachy colors or checkered flags and green flags and
old tires
and gas
absolutely
pumps?
Come on, man.
Yeah. So I love to know who owns all these condominiums.
Somebody does.
It's racing fans. It's racing. It's got to be racing fans.
And they live there all year round.
They can if they want.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So it would be like. So if the stodgy old members at Augusta built a condo at Amen Corner, and all this is looking down at the 11th, or was it the 12th hole? The 12th hole, 10, 11, the 12th hole, and 4 days out of the year, there's crowds in front of you. For 361 days, you're looking at a green slope with some azaleas there.
Yeah, with nothing there.
And nothing's happening.
Yeah,
except a couple golfers.
That's why I say it's so great that you're the only one there. And they're racing. There's no traffic. There's nobody else around. I mean, that would have.
So where else would you want to have condos? At Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Have it there.
Absolutely, and one in some NBA arena.
And probably the Yankee Stadium for baseball.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, or Fenway or somewhere like that.
Fenway. Yeah. That would be cool. And then for basketball, like Seltman,
probably in LA or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere where they're really good all the time.
Hockey, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I would do it in the NBA, but the football one,
And then college would be like, if they could
Oh,
put
gosh.
little like Krzyzewski condos at Duke.
Yeah. They would probably sell those too. That's
Sure.
probably an idea. Well, here's an idea somebody floated for the NBA. All right. You say you're going to give 25 people unlimited access to all the games. 25 at $10 million a piece.
Ooh.
Full on access, travel, whatever. And that's it. Can you sell it?
Yeah. To each arena, to each.
No. That's it. You only need 25 of them for all the games. You can watch whatever you want to watch. Go wherever you want to go, because they gotta and keep everybody from catching it.
Why the 25 million? How much? What's the revenue? $25 million.
Yeah, 25 mil, 10.
What does that give the NBA? That's not a lot. I mean,
50 mil would be what? If you have 25 of them, that's 250 mil, isn't it? 100 of them. Say you do 100.
Yeah.
Okay. And you get all the money, and you even go so far as say half the money goes to coronavirus, whatever.
I think if people are willing to pay,
it's like the ultimate rich guy thing.
To go up to outer space on the what's that thing? The Galactica, the Virgin Atlantic thing, and they're paying how much for that?
Look, for that it's like think about somebody like Jack Nicholson. This is what you do. You go to the games anyway. This way, you go get to see everybody and walk around with the players and all that stuff.
You think of the Uber? I mean, like
that's what I'm talking about.
Elon Musk.
It's like the big, thing to show I'm a rich guy.
Yeah.
I got invited, and you give invites. I got invited to the NBA's whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Could you sell it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you could do that, you make up for the attendance money, just like that.
But you're saying the entire league. It's not.
Well, because they're only going to be playing in certain sites, supposedly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And if they're all in one place or three places, and they go to any game they want, and mingle with the players.
And what you might find too is you might say what is per head cost is 25 million.
Yeah.
So you might have fractional shares.
Right.
So
split it or whatever.
25 rich guys can get and just toss $1 million.
Right.
There, Now you're talking about us here, our radio personalities and podcasts. So we can afford
just
that
a thought.
Just kidding.
Yeah, right.
About I don't know.
They have to give away tickets.
1,000 fractional people. What does that break down to?
Anyway,
gotta get it down to $100. Yeah, well, I think they could. I think they could.
And that's how you make up the attendance money, because the TV money's still there.
Yeah.
And if you close that gap, all of these sports are back.
Yeah, but I read Major League Baseball, the attendance and ticket sales. I thought it was measured in billions. It was like either 5 or 6 points something.
Well, baseball's different. They got 182 games.
That's true. Well, 62.
Yeah.
162.
Yeah, 162. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Back on the court.
Yeah.
I think the door's going to get cracked open, and I think then all of a sudden you're going to start seeing it.
I think the NASCAR is going off fairly with no major happenings has really helped.
Yeah.
You had the golf thing yesterday with those little group. I think you're getting ready to see somebody pull the trigger.
Golf can pull it off too outside.
Yeah. Somebody's getting ready.
And you know what? Let's be positive. Let's see the glass half full. There's a lot of different pharmaceutical companies plus nonprofit universities. Several of them already have come out with positive clinical tests that block the COVID-19. Let's hope that somebody really gets it to market and can scale it up to the point where if you want a true vaccination for it, it's available. And you know what? Put this thing to bed and learn from it. And these viruses are out there. They're with us. They've been with us ever since man, first stepped foot on Earth. They're out there.
I've always figured it was going to be some sort of infection that took us down anyway.
Well,
we haven't made a new antibiotic since the early 70s.
Yeah, and there's another. We should save that for another podcast.
Yes.
China was doing a lot of that type of
for us.
And you know what? For many years, we're one of the big pharmaceutical manufacturing, like what China's doing for us now, was Puerto Rico, our Commonwealth, and the tax laws evaporated in the late '90s, early 2000s, and they lost that industry. We need to bring it back to Puerto Rico. Seriously, I'm being serious. Take it away from China, put it back in Puerto Rico. They have the infrastructure down there.
That's a whole nother argument.
The industry, forget the politics of Puerto Rico. I'm not.
That's more politics of corporate tax.
Yeah, well, law. It was, but the government started the tax law. They took it away. They sunset them. they need to realize what happened then. It was because then it went to the cheapest player, which was China.
Well,
Bring it back to our own people. Bring it back to this hemisphere.
I think ultimately there has to be some accountability for these, let's call them CEOs,
yes,
that are in charge of these companies that are moving their headquarters to Ireland or Bermuda or the Caymans or whatever.
Yeah.
There has to be some accountability. I don't know how that goes about. That's a tricky deal.
But that's what you elect or elected officials to sort out. You know?
Most of our companies that we all buy from daily, I would venture to say 7 out of 10 of them are not headquartered here.
Yeah, just look at the iPhone and this piece of
yeah,
electronics that we're talking on right now.
All the big boys, from Facebook on down, there's about 10 or 12 of them. The headquarters are actually in Ireland.
Yeah,
they actually do no business there.
Yeah, I know.
Really.
Yeah.
They're just their headquarters, their LLC license or whatever is from there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just insane. There has to be some accountability for that.
Yeah.
And if the tax base came from there, it wouldn't be so much on the people.
Well, they need to make the tax laws so that money sitting in foreign countries doesn't get penalized. If they get it out of Ireland, bring it home, and then they got to figure out.
Well, here's interesting: if you're a tennis player, you have to pay taxes everywhere that you played.
So, and baseball too.
I mean that's insane. Can you imagine?
No.
What kind of lawyer do you have to have for that?
Well,
You play in Italy and Spain and France and here and England, Australia, and you got to somehow take all this money and go with their tax laws, then pay taxes on it when you get back here.
That's why they have their people do that.
I
have a hard enough time doing the easy form.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, just for an NBA guy or in Major League Baseball here that was in Canada, you'd have Canada and us.
Yeah. And then when they play in different states,
Right.
they have to play. So yeah, that's
insane. I can't even.
I sold like 2 shares of McDonald's stock last year, and I had to fill out like 2 or 3 different forms for the tax forms this year. It's like, guys, I made $15 capital gains. You know, let me just round it up and put it. No, you got to have this form.
I think we're running
Let's
over.
go. All right, we got to get out of here. It's
Happy
our Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day.
Honor
the fallen that paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Yes.
That's what Memorial Day is all about. We'll be back with another episode
in a couple days.
What's it called? Carteret Connects.
Carteret Connects.
I'll learn it.
Bye.
In season 2.